All right, I understand now we do have Professor Sipho Seepe joining us to further unpack this. Professor Seepe, it's good to have you with us. I hope you can hear me this time. So I wanted to say, so what were some of your biggest takeaways from General Khumalo's testimony, especially in regards, of course, to the type of pushback from higher political structures, specifically the Ministry of Police, in the police meeting out their duties on specific cases in relation to high-profile individuals?
Well, the first thing that the general sought to put across is the modus operandi of the task team in terms of the notion of it being analysis-led. And the chair of the commission then asked him about how does it fit into the notion of prosecution-driven investigation. And he was able to bring the two together to simply saying, when you talk about analysis, you're talking about not only looking at the normal way in which the police investigate a crime. For instance, if there's a murder, they don't go to who has actually killed. They start asking who are the persons of interest, including those who have an interest in the death of somebody. So when you do that, you are able to not look at one individual, but you look at the whole web that is connected to a murder. So he was able to put that in terms of why this method was effective. Mm-hmm. And towards the end, he was now able to indicate the web of a crime syndicate in Gauteng, but also to indicate that what led to the disestablishment or disbandment of the PKTT was more a misunderstanding or mistaken or misconception that the counterintelligence in Gauteng was doing, or PKTT was doing the work of the Gauteng counterintelligence that was investigating the crime and the crime syndicates. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, felt that the PKTT, this was more information that was coming from Mohotsi being almost feeding that into Matlala, yes, and feeding that into some people in the police force. So when you saw that misunderstanding led to where the minister comes in, get involved. And the idea of now disestablishing the PKTT was to stop this investigation that might be linking the minister to the people who are part of the cartel. And he was able to explain what the cartel is involved in, and the whole notion of tender fraud, the contract killings, the kidnappings, extortion. All right, and that Prof. Was more the substance of what he was putting across.
Professor, as you've just heard there from our reporter on the scene, talking about the depth of infiltration there, I think, of course, General Khumalo ended there with this explosive chain of explanation of these communications between Vusi Matlala, who he says pays Brown Mohotsi, who's linked to the Chief of Staff at the Office of the Police Ministry, that is Mr. Nkabane, who's directly linked to Senzo Mchunu. And then Mohotsi uses his connection and access to sensitive SABC info then in turn to protect Matlala, while Mohotsi also facilitates payments, as you've heard from our reporter as well, to the ANC via Matlala. And of course, Mohotsi, we've heard, has tried to institute some frivolous legal proceedings against Khumalo that were erroneously done. So, and of course, he has in other instances conducted leaks of very confidential SABC files as well as documents. So, I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right, Professor? So when the general continues tomorrow, what are you expecting to hear, specifically in relation to now that the commission might have to widen its scope? Because we are getting a sense that this rot started far before, of course, Minister Senzo Mchunu. And I'm just wondering what the ad hoc committee's scope will have to also increase as well.
I think there are three issues that are worth mentioning. One is the influence of money within the ANC. That for as long as the ANC is not addressing that, you are going to have people who are going to be opportunists. And we see that the first people to take advantage of giving money to influence the political outcomes are the drug cartels. And the second aspect is where you have this infiltration within the SABC. And the infiltration exists mainly for one objective, to protect those drug cartels leaders who might be facing any prosecution. And hence the whole idea that says that there are people who are undermining the proper functioning of the police and what Mkhwanazi calls political interference. So what you have here is the connecting of the dot from Ket Matlala, who is already accused of a number of serious crimes. And then you have to ask, how does the minister get involved in this? And then you find the link here with somebody who is said to be his associate, who has been at the center or appears to be at the center of raising funds for the minister, so that he is responsible for the minister's political fortunes. So when you have that, then you have the political and the criminal working together. And hence the frustration that Mkhwanazi has actually raised. And what you see now with the submissions are more of a confirmation of that press conference details that Mkhwanazi gave. So it is more of an elaboration. What he did was simply to put broad strokes. And what we're now getting is the details in terms of how far deep this notion of infiltration is.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for those insightful, participations there. Thank you so much. That is Professor Sipho Seepe joining us there. He's a political analyst just weighing in on some of the outcomes of today's testimony of General Crime Intelligence Boss, that is General Dumisani Khumalo.